Greetings, friends and future friends. Today's video is on the Korg Nautilus. And today I want to show you the program mode. Now, the program mode is the functionality of the Korg Nautilus and how it deals with sound. So if you want to make any adjustment to that sound, any change in any of those parameters, you go into program mode. And then once you make those sound changes, then you can save it as a preset. Now, there's a lot of menus and a lot of adjustments you can make in program mode. So I'm not going to show you all of them. The video would be way too long. But I want to show you some of the most important ones and show you where some of these menus are. So let's get in the studio and see how those things work. All right, I have the Korg Nautilus started up, and we're at the main screen, the mode select. Now, just a little side note, I have my access keys. So in other words, my access key for letter A is my set list. Then when I touch B, it takes me to programs, and when I go to C, it takes me to combinations. So that's something you might want to set up right off the bat. I love that setup because when I'm working in a combination or a program, I can hit that button and go to the program. So when I go to program, you can see now we have selected the Italian Grand Piano 01, and when I hit program, it takes me right to that screen that brings me up to this program that gives me all the things I need to know about what's going to take place in this program. All right, we have the Italian Grand Piano 01. And if you know me, that's what I do. I usually put an 01, what version, because sometimes I change it for different compositions. So on this screen, you see we have two pianos, and basically we're selecting these engines here, these synth engines or sound engines. And if we click on this, you'll see these are all the sound engines that are available. Premium piano, electric piano, wave shaping, synthesizer, Poly 6, MS-20, plucked, tone wheel, and so on. And we're back to premium piano. So you can actually go in here and mix things up if you want. For me, this sounded really cool, the Italian F Dark 3 and the German light, and sounds like this. Really has a great sound. And you can create two different sounds and bring them in together to create your sound that you want. And on this screen, you can see we have one, we can go to the EQ. And basically, it's a low gain, a high gain, and a parametric mid. And you can adjust the actual EQ of the overall sound. Go back. And another thing is, of course, we talk about the volumes. You can mix the volume. This is actually the top piano, and this is the second piano. We can actually mute the second piano, or we can mute the top piano. Sometimes this is really cool when you're trying to get the sound out of the top piano and you don't want to mix it in yet, so you mute that bottom one and dial that in. And then also the EQ is up there. So these are all things that are on this first screen. Now there are some things we can look at on this screen and we can tap on. So if we tap on this, it brings us up to all these piano settings, from volume, pan, octave. We can actually change the octave. We can actually change the position of the lid. So if we want to bring it down or raise it up, we can do it in this screen here. And there's all kinds of adjustments you can make in here. Let's go back. Then on the bottom here, we tap on this, brings you up to this whole menu right here. And program basics, there's a lot of information here, and there's going to be a lot of information in these next couple of menus. But the big thing is down here that you really need to take and to pay a little attention to. So what this is down here is the top EX1 is actually the top keyboard, and this one too is the bottom keyboard. So if you wanted to split them up and you didn't want them playing, like right now, we're playing both pianos with that key. Now it's set up from C-1 to G9. So basically the whole keyboard is playing both sounds. But if you wanted to, say you wanted the bottom keyboard not to go up so high, you could bring this down and you can see how this line moves. So now right here at C4, both up to C4, both keyboards are playing, but past that, you're only playing the top keyboard. Sounds really cool. And the other thing is this hold. Now, I have it set to C1 to, let's get this back to C9, G9. Let's get that back to G9. The thing is this hold. So right now it's set up and you can see that the hold is set from C-1 to G9. And if we play a note, but if we do it and put the hold on, it really adds sustain to that note. So that's something that you can play with. Now there's a whole bunch of other things in here, you know, note to control and unison playing, all these different things that you can adjust in this screen. Then audio input, it's going to depend on mostly keyboards you're not going to be worried too much about, but there's some audio input can take place. XY control, this is basically controlling the joystick. And if your joystick isn't on line, you can bring it over here and line it. And if it's not right on time, but most of the time it's okay. And there's a whole bunch of things you can adjust in here. The XY envelope, this is talking about the position basically of the joystick and some of the things it does. So these controllers, this controller tab down here is really important. For me, it does a lot of things because now you can set up different things for each knob. And you can see where it says mixer control. You know, you have like right over here, knob 6 is actually EQ high gain. So these are different things that can be set up for that program to work the knobs on the deck of the keyboard. And if you go to switch, you have 2 switches over by the joystick. And what mode are they in? Toggle and switch 1 mod, switch 2 mod, RT control. What's their target? There's all kinds of different things you can do. And when you go in here, if we tap on that, a mixer or RT control, when it goes to RT control, then it's a setup. And what that can do, like on this setup, and we'll go into it a little later, what we have is when I hit the button, if I'm playing a key, now I turn switch 1 on. So what switch 1 does for me is if I'm playing the keyboard and I want delay, I just touch that switch. Really cool. So that's something you got to look at when you're working with the programs. Now looking at this main screen again, we have the overview and mix balance. Then we have a performance meter. Playing keyboards and stuff really doesn't take up much, but you can see it can measure the CPU. This would only really, I use it if I use it. I hardly really use it because the Nautilus is pretty strong. But if you're playing a lot of arpeggios and playing a lot of things, you might want to look at that. But the next thing that's really cool is quick layer. Now, what quick layer is basically taking my sound, the 2 piano sounds, and now mixing it with a violin. And I know this is already going to be loud, so I'm going to bring it down. So what you have is 2 sounds layered on top of each other. And of course you can go in here and, you know, pick any sounds from, you know, we have the strings and studio violins. But this is really cool for a quick, and then of course you can, you know, write layered combination, which this is really cool. You know, and we'll get into that later. But when you create this layer, you're basically, theoretically, you're actually playing 3 sounds. You're playing the sound of the piano, which is playing 2 sounds, and then you're playing the sound of the violins. So it's basically a small combination. And down here it says write layered combination. So if we tapped on that, we can actually write that in a combination, which I'll do that in a later video. But this is really cool for a quick layer. If you want something to add extra to your sound, but you don't want to, if I go back to my preset, we don't want to mess this up. We don't want to, change this because we like this setup. But we want something quick. We can go into that quick layer and boom. Now we have that violin in there with the piano. Really nice option. Cancel that. All right, the other thing I really like in this screen is called Quick Split. And if we tap on that, it brings us up to this screen. And what you have is a bass on the bottom and keys on top, because now here is your sound on top. Really cool for a quick composition. You want to do something. And again, as in it we had in the previous screen of quick layer, I could actually write that to a combination. So let's cancel out of that. So this quick layer and quick split are really two great things when you want to do a quick composition or if you want to try something out. It's really great. Okay, the next tab on the bottom is called ARP and Drum, and it brings you up to this screen. And if we start the drums on the, we're going to do it here on the screen, or we can do it up there on the deck of the keyboard. And if we hit a note, we started the drums. And basically you have 4 pads. And turn the drums off. And this is really cool because now you can actually change. Now you can also change the arpeggios also. But what we can do is we go up here and do edit. Now this brings us up to this screen. And this screen, again, I can't really get into too much detail about this because there's so much I want to tell you. But basically what you can do, especially in the drums, is you can come down here. And if you look right here, you're going to see this says Rock 01 All. Then I push this, Rock 3 All. And I push this, Rock 4 All. And right here, Tom Tom Rock, Rock Ambient. So what you do is you can go in here and then tap on this, and it brings up a whole list of drum patterns that can be brought back in there. Cancel. So then you can actually save that, because what you're doing is creating a drum pattern for each one of these pads. And then what you can do is make it so that you have, like this, you can see it has Rock 1, Rock 3, and Rock 4. And then basically they have the fourth tab here, the fourth icon you can tap on is basically a drum fill. And you can do that. And again, there's more stuff in this other screen. We're not going to get into this too much, but there is a lot of changing the velocities, the drum tracks. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this drum pattern that's being played. And of course, the same thing with the arpeggios. You can come up in here and you can see up in the arpeggios, ARP 1, ARP A, you can loop it or play it. And I don't even know what the arpeggio is. I never played it. So there's the arpeggio. We tap the arpeggio on the deck of the keyboard. We untap it or disengage it. And again, we could go in here, and that says progressive. Now, if we go over here and tap on it, progressive, what if we go random and go okay? Oh, that's random accents. So let's go back to that and go, I like the progressive. It sounded really cool. Okay. But so you can change your arpeggios and the drum patterns in this screen. And again, one thing you want to do when you're working with the Korg Nautilus, it's really screen intensive. So when you see something that says more, you can bring it up and experiment. You know, when these little gears, when you see that, that definitely means edit. And again, you know, you're talking about the scene common setup. Again, there's another more, and this is basically setting up where the trigger of the drum is. So I want to show you that again, because that might be important for you if you're writing a composition. So right here, scene common setup. You tap on that more. So right now, what you're doing is setting up top key, you know, what you're doing. See right here, it says drum. So on that drum, this is what it's going to be. We got the whole keyboard, C-1 to G9 and C-1 to G9. But you could change this. So in other words, what you're going to do is maybe I want that drum to come in on a C4. And I know I can play my keyboards, and when I hit that C4, the drums are going to come in. You could actually adjust that. And then, of course, the velocity and trigger of that hit. So if you really, really got crazy, you could, you know, adjust the top and bottom of the arpeggio. There's a lot of intensity in here, you know, stuff that you want to do and stuff you can adjust. But this screen is pretty cool. The arpeggios, really arpeggios and drums. But the first screen, again, is great too. Now, you know, I never noticed that. Let's try it out. Let's play the arpeggio. So did you notice that? So arpeggio 1, I don't think there was an arpeggio. It's off the accent. Oh, there you hear it. Now arpeggio 2, arpeggio 3, arpeggio 4. So you can see, and again, you'd go up here and you would go through each arpeggio. When you're changing the arpeggios, it's the same way you change the drums. Now I want to make something really clear to you so that it makes it easier for you, because I've made this mistake and you might make the same mistake. When you're working on these things, especially when you go in this area here, you might be over here working. You say, hey, I want to get this drum part to be this part here. Remember, keep your eye up here, because you'll see scene 1 setup, scene 2 setup, scene 3 setup, scene 4 setup. Because what could possibly happen is you're working on scene 4 and you got this drum track going on, and somehow you tap the 3 and now you get this piano that you really like, but really what you've done is created a piano track for scene 3 and not scene 4. So make sure, 2 things, when you're doing any work in this area, make sure that scene 1, scene 2, scene C, and scene 4, make sure you know what scene you're on before you make any adjustments. Because I hate to see you go all this work, and I finally got things that really sound good in scene 4 on the drums, and here you were actually programming scene 3. Now I want to go to this last tab down here called Tone Adjust. To me, this is a very underrated screen, and it's got a lot of stuff. Now, one thing that the Kronos has over the Nautilus is the on-deck controls, is you can do all these great things on the deck. Well, the Nautilus can do just about all that stuff too, but it's in this menu. And this Tone Adjust menu is really cool. So basically, you're looking through switches 1 through 16. And then we have sliders 1 through 8. And then we have sliders 9 through 17. Now, I will say it's not as great as the Kronos, where you have a deck or you have the buttons and sliders right on a deck and you go to work. But this is something, a function that the Korg Nautilus has that I think nobody's really using. So basically what that is a switch. So this is turning on stereo perspective, on, off. You know, resonance enabled. noise release, mechanical noise on and off. And what you can do is actually go to edit and then go up here and say, okay, I want to change. And look at all the things you can do with that button. You know, there's all these different things. And we go over here, all the different things that you can do on that button. You know, damper noise level, resonance noise level, release time, all these different things that we can do. And let's get out of that, exit out of that. And these are all the things you can do, have that button do. And it's really cool. So let's go over to sliders. So what's really cool, and this blows me away, is you got the sliders. You know, the Kronos has all these sliders. Well, you have sliders right here, and you can be working them. Now, let's get off of edit because I don't want to mess anything up. But check this out. So if you listen to the keyboard sound, and if we bring this down, of course, you're not going to hear anything. But if I bring this noise, mechanical noise level up, hear that click behind a note? That's the noise of a regular piano hammer being reset. And I can adjust that volume. You know, in the studio here, I can barely hear it, but it makes it sound like a real piano. Bring it back up again. That's a real noisy piano. And bring it back down. And all of these different things you can change. And if we go to now 19, you're only with stereo resonance, the depth. These are all different things that you can change and create. So in your performance, we could actually create, you know, let's just go back into edit and let's do something like this. Let's go into here. And let's see if we have a amp on all these different things. There's even some synthesizers, low frequency oscillator fade, low frequency delay, all these different things you can do in here. And what's that right there? Let's see. My goodness. Let's go to transpose. Okay, transpose. Wow. So now what we've done is we created transpose. We got it off. And let's make this, let's make it so we can hear the difference. So right now it's off. But if I tap it, so, without getting too in-depth in this, because there's so much more I want to talk to you about, is that there is a possibility of setting up switches, sliders, and if we go to 8, 9, I wonder if they're, you know, resonance, you could actually, you know what? Why don't we do this? Let's try this. Let's go back to switches, and let's turn that thing off. And make sure, see, we got, let's go to a slider, and let's go to one of the sliders that are not being used. Go over here, and where was that transpose? We saw it there somewhere. And there it is. Let's go transpose. And now, okay, now we have transpose in this slider. Now, that might not be anything we might use in a composition, but what I'm saying is that, look, when we go up here to edit all this, look at all, there is just a plethora of all these different things we can make that slider do. And again, you can save it to that program. And this is something, again, so let's go back. I want to show you this real quick. So you're in programs, you have this piano, and go over here to the very end, down here, tone adjust, and brings you up to 16 switches. You could create 16 things that you can turn on with a tap. So you might want to make create something, a delay or an effects, tap on it, and boom, there you go. Or a slider, these 9 through 17 sliders. Really, again, I have to show you that again. Right here, down here in the corner, tone adjust. Really an awesome function. Now we're back to the program mode. If we hit page, it brings us up to this screen. And I'm going to go through this real quick because there's just so much here. Common, when you're going to see that common, and then you have basics. This is basic stuff, program basics, audio in, X and Y controls, and controllers. We've gone through some of that already. Back to page, EQ, we saw that. Basically, you know what that means. And effects. Now, this is one that, routing. You can see what's being routed where. So these effects, matter of fact, there's 3 effects: a stereo parametric 4 EQ, a left C right, left center right delay, and a stereo masking limiter. And they're all going out to left and right. And I think I showed you one of those other setup videos how to change that. And then we see insert effects. So what they've done, and you go in here and you insert any effect. So looks like number 2 is the delay. And you see how they've routed them out. So in other words, effects 1 comes in, then it comes into effects 2, and then it goes into effects 3. And from effects 3, it goes out left and right. And it looks like there's no effects. Now, when you come to this screen, this is really important too, because what you're doing is setting the parameters of that effects. So if we go back to effects, we see that we have the parametric cue on effects 1. Effects 2 is left, center, right delay. Effects 3 is the stereo mastering limiter. So when we go to here, now what takes place is the actual setup of that parameter. We have effects 1 on, so it's a stereo parametric EQ, and these are all the settings for that. If we go to effects 2, now that's bringing up what you selected. Now remember, it's not an effect, it's the effect that you selected. So it's not bringing up any effects. If we went, matter of fact, if we go here and we go to 4, you're going to see no effect. You're going to 6, you're going to see no effect. But we know, because we saw that we inserted effects on effects 1, effects 2, and effects 3. So this brings up effects 1, all the parameters of that. Effects 2, we're talking about the delay, how to change that. And if you look, as I said previously in this video, right here, switch 1 mod, source, switch 1 mod. And it's got a CC code of CC 80. What that's telling you is that exactly. So right now, that delay is not being played because switch 1 is off. But if I turn switch 1 on, and all these parameters are now being affected. The left delay, the center delay, and the right delay. And there's our levels also. So if we went and we made the center, it's at 50, let's back it off. Now you're just going to have a left and right, which sounds really cool. But again, effects insert, these are where you put the effects in and how you map it. You're going to map, like when you touch that little knob right there. Now you see it went to straight across. What you're doing is you're linking the top effect to the bottom effect. Now, because both of these are checked, that effect is going through, coming over, going to the second effect, and then going through the third effect, and then going straight out. And then this is where you would set up the parameters of that. And then your effects LFO, this to me doesn't really do a lot with piano sounds, but it might change some stuff with a synth sound. And again, back to your routing. This is showing you how things are going. We're now back to the page screen, and we'll go to modulation. Modulation to me in the keyboard, this piano sound wouldn't make much change, but maybe a synth sound it might change. But I want you to see this is where that takes place. For your low frequency oscillator, there are some things I could get into it probably and change this piano sound, because we know the low frequency modulation could be assigned to do just about anything, whether it's going to change the filter or whatever. And the common key track. Now this is pretty cool. You won't really have to adjust it because it comes with the presets pretty much. But basically, in the manual, it says it takes the time to change, the amount of change between each note and all that. But basically, to me, using my ears, it's more of a dynamics, and I don't mean dynamics in volume, but kind of like a more, the key responds quicker or faster, or, it just makes a little bit more of an EQ, like using some kind of Barkasberry enhancer and enhancing it. And what it's really trying to do in this arena of the keyboard, the piano, is make the piano seem more real. That's why most of the time I leave these things alone, because the guys that designed these keyboards and playing piano want to make it sound like a piano. Well, we know high notes sound different than the lower notes. You can't have everything playing the same. And I think with this system here, that's what they were trying to do. And the manual really doesn't say much about it. It says something of, it makes the change quicker or slower, which, like I said, it sounds a little bit about dynamics. To me, my ears say the higher the numbers. And then basically what you're doing in this low break, you're adjusting this rod. The center is this rod. And then the high break is this rod. So basically, like if I came over here and adjusted the high top, you're going to see it change, but it's going to change where this is. And if I change that, you're going to see that move. And it basically, like I said, to my ear, I usually leave these things alone because they're pretty much the presets that they created already have this dynamics built into it. But just showing you that you can adjust this. And the last thing, when you're in program and you hit page, the last thing on this menu is master effects and what they call total effects. And it's kind of strange the way they call it that way, what master effects are and total effects, but I kind of get it. So your master effects are the master effects up here. And as you can see, what they've done is they've brought send 1 and send 2. They brought these effects in. And again, here's another little knob. So if I want to run this effects out and run it over to here first, and it's basically simple. You set up that effects chain. And again, you're right over here, the different effects chain. You want to go MFX2 to MFX1. You can go like that. And if you go over here, if you want the MFX1 to go into MFX2, you go like that. And both of them are on. You can turn one on, turn one off. And then the returns, where they're coming back in and going out. Now, what's really something I don't understand is that there are actually two signals to me, the way it looks. I don't notice it much in the sound, but it looks like there's two sources of effects going out to me. And if someone could leave something in the comments below, because basically you have these signals of these two effects coming into here and then going out to left and right and then going down into total effects, because Korg calls TFX total effects. So, and then coming out here, and then this is going left and right. But then this has a master control. So the way I'm looking at it is that this effects end goes out to left and right.
but it's also going out to the master effects. But again, this is something that's going to be about your ears. You're going to be moving around and moving these things. And then basically the bottom screen, MFX1, master effects. And again, this is the parameters of that effect. If we change that stereo course to something else, these parameters would change. There's master effects 2. That's another thing. You're going to have your different master effects. Total effects. This is going to be something that works over the total system, and total effects 2. And if you go back to routing, there's TFX1 and TFX2. So, well, actually TFX2 is turned off. So what came up there? Yeah, TFX2 came up. There was nothing here. So one thing I want to show you is this little star up here. So with that star not engaged, you come up here and you can go through. Okay, I want to go through my presets. And I got piano, I got keyboards. Now, all these different things. Now, this is my user bank here. You can see it says user. But if we go to piano, we go to organ, keyboard, all these different things. And you can either search for it through a list. There's, the list pianos, A, and a list through T. T is actually initiating. What's going on here? M, M is voice and all this stuff. And you'll see these presets have letters in front of the numbers. You can do it that way, or you can go bank, go whatever bank it's in. I like to stick with category because that way, if I'm looking for a sound, I know if, hey, I want a special effects, I can come over here. Or if I want drums, I know where it's at. But go back to programs. But if you put this star and you turn it on, now we've just made that into a star. Now, if we go up here and you turn favorites on, now you're going to see Italian Grand Piano. So what that does is now you're going to see it's right here. Boom. It's in the favorites. If I click that off again, it brings you back into the categories. And if I click on this, it goes to favorites. So again, where you have that other keyboard with all the buttons on the deck, you can still have all your favorites, but save them here. And back up a step, that star. When you have a preset you like and you have saved it, now that favorite is not going to save it. So if we made any adjustments, which I don't want to make any changes because I don't know what we changed during this tutorial, but you can see write program. You click on that and you're going to save it to wherever you're going to save it. You have to save that preset because the favorite is not going to save it. So you save that preset, you really like it, but hey, that's 3 presets that you really liked and saved, but you want them because you do a show. So then you go to favorites, make it a favorite, tap on that star. You just made this preset your favorites. Then when you go back, then when you go over to here, you come up here and you come to your favorites. All the ones that you put in favorites will be in here. You could set them up that way. Really cool stuff.
So I hope this video gave you a little bit more information on how to use the program mode. There's a lot of adjustments and parameter changes you can make in the program mode to get that sound to sound the way you like. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. You'll help us grow the channel. That way we can bring you more cool stuff. So take care, my friends, and thanks for watching.